Now, you can get away with that if it's actually true, and you are playing in a really big market that can sustain that sort of valuation, and you do have like some interesting technology, but it's a pretty ballsy move on his part for sure. All right, thanks for joining me for this reacts video of the playlist, which is the story of Spotify. As an investor in Spotify, I was really excited when they launched this because, you know, even though you're an investor, it's not necessarily mean that you have seen the inside workings of how the company got started. And while I'm sure that a lot of this is pure drama and not real, I did really enjoy it. And so I thought it'd be fun to do a react on the part where they talk about raising money for this company, particularly at a point when it was on fumes and about to go under. Let's listen.
Was I really sure about that? Of course I wasn't. But I knew Daniel would deliver on the tech, and so all I had to do was deliver too.
We are.
You know what I love, just right off the bat, is that there are so many times when companies that are big and successful today almost completely went under. In this case, you know, Spotify was barely living on fumes and was about to go under and desperately needed the money. And if Martin hadn't figured out how to raise the money from investors, they would have failed and we wouldn't have Spotify today. Who knows what we would have? Maybe we would have something else like RDO or something, or maybe we'd still be downloading illegal music off the internet. I don't know. But nonetheless, like if you're an entrepreneur and you're going through a tough time, just know that like you're not alone, that other entrepreneurs, all great companies go through these make and break periods.
Very interested. But since the music sector is so uncertain right now, we feel that a more wait and see approach suits us better.
Okay, this is something that if you're an entrepreneur and you've tried to raise money, I'm sure you've heard this before, which is basically like VCs. We're all about like, yeah, we like take big risks and swing big and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like we're also risk averse. And part of that's because we can see lots and lots of different investment opportunities. And so, you know, it's like, why take all of this risk when we can invest in something that's got just as big of an upside, but less risk? And basically what she's telling him is, this feels pretty risky. I'd rather just wait and see you like de-risk this a little bit more. Let's see how he handles that pushback.
I fully understand that you want to be cautious, but this technology that Daniel has created is revolutionary. You really don't want to miss this opportunity, Esther.
It's an astonishing product, Martin. But we'll wait and see.
So what she's basically saying is like, yeah, the product's cool, but can you build a business? And I can't tell you like how many companies I've seen that have built really cool products, but haven't built really cool businesses. In some cases, it's like a really cool product searching for a problem to solve. And those can be some of the worst investments out there. Now, I don't think that's actually the case here. I think Spotify had actually built a product for a customer. They just hadn't figured out how to monetize it yet. But what they had done was actually super valuable for their customers. They just had to figure out the right way to monetize it.
I never falter in the face of money, but I knew I was in trouble. Even if she wanted to go in later, we didn't have 6 months. And I was stopped from selling any more shares, so if no one dared go in now, within 2 weeks we'd be broke. Fortunately, I knew that rich capitalists are like children in a sandbox. No one really wants anything until they think someone else wants it.
So, this isn't about golf, is it? You just want to pitch me that Spotify idea.
Oh, no. As it happens, my co-founder Daniel, he met with some young investors who were very happy to come in.
Who's that?
Oh, come on, Anton. You know I can't divulge. Don't worry. I might let you in for the second round. Damn.
So, see what he's doing there? He's not like really lying, right? He didn't say that they had a deal done with other investors, and entrepreneurs do this all the time to VCs, and most VCs can kind of see through it. But nonetheless, like, you don't want to be wrong and miss out. It's all about building like FOMO and momentum. And that's really what he's doing. And he doesn't want to wait till the next round, because by the time the next round comes around, by then it's going to be like quote unquote obvious, and the valuation will be way higher, and the opportunity to drive the returns that he needs as a VC will be gone. So, that's why he's like, hey, don't worry, I got you in the next round, because he knows that by the next round it'll be too late due to the increase in valuation.
No, Martin. Who's this mysterious investor of yours? Come on, Martin. It's...
Anton from Arctic.
You serious?
Yep.
Okay, so what he's doing there is he's playing these firms off of each other. So oftentimes what happens is you have two funds, and in this case, they're both Swedish-based funds. And so they know each other, and they're frenemies, and sometimes they do deals, with each other, but sometimes they lose deals to each other. And so he knows that, like, that's a button he can push and be like, hey, if you don't do this, your biggest competitor is going to get it, and then they're going to get all the glory and all the returns. And, they don't want to miss out. So again, it's just like building that FOMO. I just love this scene for that.
Well, if I tell you, you didn't hear it from me.
Of course not.
Esther.
Okay, and what kind of deal did you get from Arctic?
You know better than that, Esther. I can't tell you that information.
Only ballpark figures. How much? I'm not asking you to give me the precise amount.
All I can tell you is whoever backs us before we get the rights is going to make the real money.
So, in theory, and this is purely hypothetical, what does the offer look like for investors entering at this early stage?
5% of Spotify for $10 million. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. So basically what he said is, like, they're about ready to go out of business, okay? And they got no money left. They don't have the rights for the music, so they can't generate any revenue. And he is valuing this thing at $200 million, which is crazy, which is why she just misses her swing, because she's like, whoa, somebody agreed to pay you that, right? That's crazy. That's a super high valuation. But here's the caveat to that, and that is that, you ever like go to the store and you're looking at buying two different things and you can't tell much about them from the outside, but one's priced a lot higher than the other, and so you just assume that the higher price thing is actually better. This happens with like Rolexes. Did you know Rolex is not actually that good of a watch? If you want like the best watch at just telling time, which is why you buy a watch, well, there are a lot of reasons to buy a watch, but I mean, that's the real job of a watch, right? Is to tell you the time. You're better off just buying a Timex than a Rolex. But the reality is you buy the Rolex because it's priced more and it comes with like prestige and all these like other things. But people also think that Rolexes must be actually good watches, when in reality they're not. But the point being is that sometimes you can kind of fake your way into a higher valuation of saying, hey, look, we're a high quality company. Just like a Rolex is high quality, and it comes with a high price tag. Now, you can get away with that if it's actually true, and you are playing in a really big market that can sustain that sort of valuation, and you do have like some interesting technology, but it's a pretty ballsy move on his part for sure.
Anton, but that moment has passed. You know how it is. But if you want to come in, I'm not saying that you do, but if you did, it would now be for 8.5% at $20 million.
All right, so he just basically upped the price another $35 million on this guy. So he keeps working it up and up, creating more FOMO and momentum.
For $30 million. The best split I can offer you now is 40% for $40 million. Okay, final offer. 20% for $60 million. 20% for $60 million.
So what he's doing, which is really interesting, is he knows that 5% is not what is going to work for them. They're going to be more interested in ownership percentage than they are necessarily on valuation. And the reason for this is because as a venture fund, if you're a Series A venture fund, you need to end up owning about 15 to 25% of a company, because over time you're going to get diluted down. But if you can at least own 10% of the business by the time they go public, then that's usually enough to return your fund, assuming you have a good outcome. And so he starts at 5 by saying, knowing that 5% is too low, and then setting a really high valuation. Because what he wants to do is keep the valuation high and then negotiate on the ownership percentage and move them up, which is effectively what he's doing here. He knows that he's got to get them both up into the company, and he needs to get their ownership percentages up high enough for them to be interested, which is what he does. He negotiates and gets them each up to 20%, which is kind of that magic number that they both need to hit. And where their focus really is, well, simultaneously pushing the valuation up from that $200 million valuation to a $300 million valuation. Like it's a really interesting negotiation strategy he's deploying, and frankly one that we see happen all the time with venture-backed companies, where and sometimes it's even the reverse. Like the venture investors coming to them and saying, hey, I want to invest more into your business. How about we give you a higher valuation so we can end up owning more of the business at the end of the day? Now, for these investors, this investment's going to turn out phenomenally well. I mean, the fact that they each ended up owning 20% of Spotify, which went on to be valued in the tens of billions of dollars, was a pretty good day for their firm, because I think both of those funds were relatively small at the time. So,
Yes, Spotify can accept both Serendipity and Arctic as investors, if you're willing to split up.
Okay.
I'm in.
In that moment, I realized that I had made a mistake. I thought all along that I was driving the price up. But suddenly I realized that they'd been prepared to pay much more. I'd undervalued Spotify, and the opportunity to set the valuation would never come back.
You did what?
I changed currency. At the last second, I changed from dollars to euros.
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
It's more money. The same figure, but in euros, is worth 20% more.
And who the hell would agree to
You
that?
have to trust me, Daniel. You have to learn to trust me.
Why did you have to do this at the last second?
Because it has to be on our terms. We have to show confidence.
Jesus, Martin, we're running on steam. In 2.5 weeks, we won't be able to pay wages.
It'll be fine. Trust me on that.
How do you know that? What do we do if they just say no? Have you considered that? What will you do if they just laugh in your face because you tried something so fucking idiotic?
If they call before 6, it's a no. If they call after, it's a yes.
What?
A no is simple. I left an hour ago. A no comes within an hour. A yes, it requires a little more time, a bit of marinating and that sort of thing. It takes a bit more balls.
Balls? Really?
Really, I've done this before. Now it's after 6.
What am I gonna tell everyone? So we had to deal, but your balls got in the way.
It'll be fine, 100%. 100%.
Fuck this shit, Martin. We needed this deal.
Hello? Hey, Anton. Yes. Well, yes. Have you had a chance to look at my proposition? Well, all we want to know is, are you on board with Spotify or not? Yes or no?
Oh, Jesus, fuck, we're...
all right, so yeah, it's an interesting ballsy move at the end there. I don't know that I would have played that card and tried to push it up even more, but I do put value into what he said, right? Setting things on their terms. And yeah, you know, VCs maybe in this case would have invested more at a higher valuation, be it what it may. But yeah, I just love that end scene where, you know, he's basically like calling their bluff a little bit and saying, you know, how badly do you... I just love that end scene where he basically calls the investors bluff and, you know, sets the price on their terms and sets the tone of the relationship going forward, which there's a lot of value in being able to raise money on your terms and set that tone early. Anyways, let me know down in the comments what you thought of this clip, if I should do more of them, and check out some of my other reacts like my Shark Tank react to breathometer. Thanks.